Some betrayals don't come with shouting. They don't always arrive with drama or obvious cruelty. Sometimes they walk in quietly, wrapped in the face of someone you loved. It's a strange kind of pain to realize that someone you trusted with your vulnerability saw it as an opportunity, not to protect you, but to exploit you. That kind of betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it fractures something deeper. Your worldview, your ability to feel safe, your instinct to believe in people. I've been there. Maybe you have too. You replay every word, every conversation, every red flag you ignored. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to make sense of something that should have never happened in the first place. And in the aftermath, you're left with two voices, one telling you to be the bigger person, the other asking, at what cost? This is where Stoicism steps in, not to harden your heart, but to protect your spirit. The Stoics didn't teach us to be emotionless. They taught us to master our emotions, so we could choose peace over poison, clarity over chaos, and wisdom over wounded pride. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone does wrong, the harm is to themselves, but the response is yours." That doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means walking away with dignity, not dragging pain around like a trophy. Stoicism isn't about pretending betrayal didn't hurt. It's about deciding that the betrayal won't define you. It's about accepting that forgiveness can be noble, but it should never be naive, because not all betrayals are created equal. Some were mistakes, made in confusion or weakness. Others, they were calculated, repeated, delivered with full awareness of how deeply they'd cut. And when you face that kind of betrayal, the kind that mocks your loyalty, distorts your truth, or tries to erase the very person you've become, you don't need revenge. You don't even need closure. You just need to remember this. Your peace is not a gift you give to people who destroy it. Your forgiveness is not a shortcut for them to escape consequences. And your life is not a revolving door for those who broke your trust to walk in and out at will. So today, I want to speak directly to those of you who've outgrown your pain, who've done the work, who still feel the sting, but refuse to let it steal your future. This isn't about anger, it's about awareness. This isn't about burning bridges, it's about refusing to rebuild with rotten wood. In this video, we'll uncover 3 betrayals a Stoic must never ignore. Not because we lack compassion, but because we've developed boundaries. You'll see how wisdom sometimes means saying, "I forgive you, but you no longer have access to me." Because the strongest version of you is not the one who stays and suffers quietly. It's the one who walks away without apology and never looks back. Before we begin, take a breath. And if you feel like this message already speaks to something in you, like this video, subscribe to Stoic Thinkers, and share your story in the comments. You're not alone in this. You've simply reached the chapter where peace becomes non-negotiable. Let's begin. First, deliberate humiliation. When someone uses your pain to entertain others. Let me tell you something most people won't admit. The deepest pain doesn't always come from the betrayal itself. It comes from the laughter that followed. It's one thing to be hurt in private. It's another to be turned into a joke in the mouths of people who once held your trust. People who knew exactly where you were fragile and still chose to make a spectacle of your vulnerability. Maybe you opened up about something personal, and they repeated it at a dinner table, smiling. Maybe you told them your fear, and they mocked it in front of strangers to seem witty. Maybe you cried in front of them, and later they used your breakdown as a punchline. That's not love. That's not closeness. That's public cruelty wrapped in private access. It took me a while to understand this. Humiliation is betrayal wearing a smile. It doesn't shout, it doesn't strike, it performs. And when you first feel it, you don't always react. You freeze, you rationalize, you tell yourself, they didn't mean it like that. Because the alternative, that they did mean it, is even more painful to accept. But a Stoic learns to see the world not as we wish it to be, but as it is. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That moment comes when you finally admit, their laughter wasn't innocent. Their timing wasn't accidental, and your pain was never safe with them. Now, this isn't about bitterness. Stoicism doesn't teach us to retaliate. It teaches us to remove. You don't walk away to teach them a lesson. You walk away because you've learned yours. A person who laughs at your pain will never protect your peace. And someone who finds amusement in your scars is not equipped to handle your healing. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. But here's the twist most people miss. The Stoic answer isn't to numb yourself. It's to raise your standards. To understand that forgiveness is optional, but self-respect is not. That just because you don't retaliate doesn't mean you should reconnect. And that sometimes the most powerful act of grace is silence. The kind of silence that echoes louder than their laughter ever did. You can wish them well, but from a distance. You can forgive what they did, but you're not required to let them do it again. Because if you heal in the presence of someone who humiliated you, you're not healing, you're pretending. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." But humiliation is one of the few betrayals that doesn't need imagination. It's visible, public, sharp. And the damage it leaves behind isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. It chips away at your ability to be open, to be soft, to trust. So to anyone listening right now who has felt this sting, I'll say this: you don't need to announce your exit. You don't need to make a scene. You don't even need them to understand why you left. Let their laughter echo in your absence, not in your presence, because the person you're becoming deserves a room where dignity is not up for debate. 2. Betrayal in silence. When they watch you suffer and stay quiet. There's a kind of betrayal most people never talk about, because it's not loud, it's not dramatic. It doesn't come with slander or screaming matches. It comes with silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that stands still while you're drowning. I've seen it. You probably have too. You were struggling, fighting battles behind the scenes, and someone who claimed to love you stood there and did nothing. They didn't throw dirt, but they didn't throw you a rope either. And the silence hurt more than anything they could have said, because deep down you realized they had a choice. They could have stood beside you, spoken for you, protected you, even quietly. But they chose their own comfort over your crisis, and in that moment, they told you everything you needed to know. Seneca once wrote, "A friend is someone who watches over your solitude, not someone who disappears in it." The people who vanish when your life gets hard aren't neutral, they're complicit. They may say they didn't want to get involved, but a Stoic knows silence is involvement. To watch someone be mocked, blamed, or broken and say nothing is to stand on the side of the one causing the harm. Even the Stoics, with all their focus on inner peace and emotional control, never taught blind tolerance. Epictetus said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." So ask yourself this: when things fell apart, who disappeared first? Not the ones who sent you messages when everything was good, but the ones who saw you bleeding and said, "That's not my place." Their silence wasn't peace, it was betrayal dressed in passivity. Forgiveness? That's your call. But trust? Trust should be earned by presence, not words. Because the ones who go quiet in your pain will often go quiet again when it counts. You don't need to announce who failed you. You just need to stop expecting them to show up. This isn't about holding grudges. It's about remembering patterns. A Stoic doesn't waste energy decoding why someone stayed silent. He observes, accepts, and adjusts the access. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. So don't argue. Don't beg for explanations. Don't try to convince someone to be loyal. Just be still long enough, and the truth will separate who was standing with you from who was just standing near you. If you've ever felt that hollow silence in a moment you needed someone most, know this: you weren't crazy, you weren't too sensitive, you were simply surrounded by people who weren't ready for your pain. And that's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to remember. so let their silence echo back to them, while you build your life around voices that speak peace even when it's inconvenient. 3. Betrayal of identity. When someone tries to change who you are, some betrayals are subtle, so subtle you don't even notice them at first. They don't sound like, "I don't love you anymore." They sound like, "Why can't you be more like you used to be?" They don't say, "You're too free." They say, "You've changed." But make no mistake, that too is betrayal. Because when someone tries to rewrite your identity, to clip the wings they once praised, to shrink the version of you that grew beyond their comfort, they are not loving you. They are loving control. I've been there, toned myself down to stay lovable, held my voice back to avoid conflict, dressed, spoke, even dreamed smaller just to keep someone from leaving. But in doing that, I realized something devastating. The person they loved was never me. And the more I grew, the more uncomfortable they became. Stoicism teaches us to live in harmony with nature. And what is more natural than becoming? Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That applies to people too. When someone stands in the way of your evolution, that resistance reveals the path forward, away from them. If you are walking the Stoic path, one of growth, detachment, strength, and inner mastery, then you must accept this truth. Not everyone will grow with you, and not everyone is meant to. Some will cling to the outdated version of you, because that version was predictable, easy to manipulate, easier to love because it asked for less. But the more you become yourself, the more they try to reduce you into a version that fits back into their comfort zone. Epictetus warned us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And that includes the expectations others put on your identity. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain. You just need to choose yourself again. Louder this time. Because you don't owe anyone a softer, smaller, quieter you. You owe yourself truth. And any love that demands your silence isn't love, it's control. Any friendship that punishes your progress isn't support, it's suffocation. Any relationship that only thrives when you dim yourself isn't sacred, it's survival. So here's what a Stoic does. He doesn't shrink to be accepted. He grows even if it means outgrowing others. You can forgive them for not understanding your evolution, but you don't have to slow down to keep them comfortable. Seneca said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." If someone wants the version of you that kept them comfortable, but kept you caged, that's not someone who belongs in your future. You were not born to be edited. You were born to unfold, and anyone who sees your growth as a threat has already told you where they stand. So keep evolving, keep rising, and if they call it arrogance, let them. Because the version of you who plays small to keep the peace was never truly at peace. Let me leave you with something I wish someone told me earlier. You don't have to keep proving you're a good person by tolerating bad people. Forgiveness is noble, yes, but only when it doesn't cost you your soul. There are betrayals that happen once and leave you wiser, and there are betrayals you allow to repeat. Because you confuse peace with passivity, loyalty with self-abandonment, love with endurance, but a Stoic knows better. We know that real strength isn't shown by how long we stay. It's shown by how clearly we walk away. Without bitterness, without rage, but with the kind of calm that says, "I see what you are, and I choose not to participate anymore." So whether it was public humiliation, the silence of someone who should have spoken, or a relationship that tried to shrink you into obedience, you don't owe anyone a second chance at betraying you. Seneca said, "He who spares the guilty punishes the innocent." And if you keep sparing those who've shown they will harm you again, the one you punish is yourself. You deserve a life where trust isn't a risk, where your softness isn't used against you, and where your identity isn't something you have to defend just to be loved. So what's the Stoic response? We don't plot revenge. We don't play games. We just leave. And we never return to the scene of our own emotional erosion. Let them keep their explanations. Let them keep their rewritten stories. Let them keep the version of you they betrayed. Because the one you're becoming now, she doesn't tolerate disrespect. He doesn't beg for love. They don't chase closure. They walk away with peace in their chest and nothing left to prove. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to Stoic Thinkers, like the video, and share your story in the comments below. Your growth is not just welcome here, it's protected here. Remember, the strongest move isn't to fight for what broke you, it's to build what frees you. And some betrayals? They aren't the end of something good, they're the beginning of someone unshakable.